Hey everyone, I'm Marbozir, and today I'm going to take a look at Divinity Original Sin. So, Divinity Original Sin is an isometric RPG with tactical turn-based combat, and this game is really something special, which is why I wanted to bring it to your attention, if you're not familiar with it. So, the game is currently in beta. I'm playing a beta build right here, but it's scheduled to officially release on 30th June 2014, so if you're watching this video after that date, the game is already out. I did play the game a bit, so I do have characters that are a little bit progressed, but I will be starting a new game just to show you what the game is about and how it works. So it does have multiplayer, it's a cooperative multiplayer, and it works really well. Mostly because the game is actually designed with co-op in mind. It has two main characters, so you can either control both the main characters yourself, or you can play with a friend, and then you both control one of the two main characters. I will obviously play single player here. So, the way character creation works, you have two main characters, and you can customize them both. If you don't want to go into the details, and there are quite a lot of details, I'll go into that in just a second, you can pick from a list of available classes. Now, there are no classes in a strict sense in the game. These are basically templates that focus on a specific role. So we have a Shadow Blade, Wayfarer, Witch, Wizard, Battle Mage, Cleric, Enchanter, Fighter, Knight, Ranger, Rogue, and we're back to Shadow Blade. Let's go into the details then. So you are not forced to play a party like this. You can play two dudes if you're so inclined. So you can change between male and female. There's no problem with that. Just in case you're wondering. There are some basic options to change your appearance. So you can pick from a list of 15 available hairstyles. You can change your face. There are also 15 different options here. You can change your hair color. You can even change your underwear, like this, if you want to do that. There's no problem with that. You can change skin color. There are some really strange colors too. You can be pure ivory, if you want to. You can change your voice. There are only 3 available: Wizard voice, Rogue voice, and Warrior voice. And you can change the mini portrait. Anyway, let's go into the actual interesting part, which are the skills. So, in this case I picked Shadow Blade, and as I already mentioned, there are no classes in strict sense. This is just a different template which is focused on a specific role. There are a few different categories where you can assign points. So you have the basic RPG attributes. In this case, that's strength, dexterity, intelligence, constitution, speed and perception. Now, a lot of these do exactly what you might expect them to do, but it's worth checking the tooltip because some of the effects might not be obvious. But the tooltip explains exactly what these do. So perception affects your critical chance, initiative, starting action points in combat, your ability to detect traps, and your accuracy when shooting over large distances. Strength determines the chance to hit with strength-based weapons, this is important. Improves men-at-arms skills, how much you can carry, the weight of items that you can move, and how far you can throw them. I won't be going into every single one of these, by the way, but the tooltips in the game are generally really good, and they explain everything quite well. Then we have abilities, which are split into several different categories. You have 5 points that you can use in here, and you can use them in any way you want. A lot of these skills or abilities are fairly self-explanatory. I won't be going into every single one of these. Again, the tooltips do a pretty good job at explaining these. They also often explain what exact attributes you need to boost these skills further. So in nasty deeds we have lockpicking, pickpocketing and sneaking. In craftsmanship we have blacksmithing, crafting, lore master and telekinesis. This allows you to move items telepathically, which can actually be quite useful, by the way. In personality we have bartering, charisma, leadership, lucky charm. And speaking of tooltips, as you can see, if I put 1 point in this will boost initiative and damage of party members and friends that can see me. So this is affected by line of sight. I will go into skills in just a moment. This is one of the most important categories. Weapons and defense are, again, exactly what you might expect it to be. In case of single-handed, level 1 gives me a 10% damage boost with all single-handed weapons. So you don't need this to use single-handed weapons. You can use any weapons you want, but you will obviously be much better with these weapons if you are specialized in them. But this is not required to use single-handed weapons. And defense is, again, exactly what you might expect it to be. You can be better with armor, get bonuses with armor. You can be a shield specialist, which in this case gives you a % blocking chance bonus. You can also get bonuses to saving throws against physical statuses and saving throws against magical and mental spells. And this category is one of the most important ones. You can pick 3 starting skills for your character. You can obviously get more as you play the game. And these are split into categories. There's Man at Arms, Expert Marksman, Scoundrel, Pyrokinetic, Hydrosophist, Aerothurge, Geomancer and Witchcraft. And these correspond to these skills, and the way it works, you need to have at least 1 point in these skills to be able to learn this. So if I have 1 point in Witchcraft, that means I can learn up to 3 Witchcraft spells. So in this case, we have this spell right here, Bloodletting, which rips your target apart as if it were slashed with a sword. If it has blood, it will bleed. So obviously things like skeletons won't bleed. If I want to learn a spell from, let's say, Man at Arms category, I would have to get at least 1 point in Man at Arms. I cannot learn any of these right now because I have nothing in Man at Arms. So there are a lot of interesting combos in the game. This template, for example, involves having 1 point in 3 different skills and using 3 different skills from 3 different categories. But you obviously don't have to do that. You can focus on 1 at a time and use your remaining points to, let's say, boost your weapon damage. There's no problem with that. There are a lot of interesting options in character creation. And then we also have talents. Now, talents are certain special abilities and passive bonuses. You get 2 points right at the start. In this case, for this template, we have Guerrilla, which doubles your attack damage while sneaking, and Leech, which heals you when standing in blood. So if you have skills that cause the enemy to bleed, you can actually benefit from this if you stand in blood. I suspect these are picked with that in mind. What's Razor's Edge? Attack the central nervous system, a tiny wound, but it stuns your enemy for a while. Requires a dagger. So there are a lot of really interesting combinations in here. There are a lot of interesting interactions between skills too. Some of them might not be immediately obvious, but they usually make sense. Or so far from what I've seen, they always make sense. I won't be going through all of these talents. Again, the tooltips do a really good job at explaining them. So here we have Anaconda, which increases your damage with crushing weapons by 10%. And this requires single-handed ability to be at 1. The skills in the red require things that you don't have. So you can't pick any of these talents at the start because, for example, this one requires level 5. This gives you 1 extra stat point to spend. There's Demon, which requires Pyrokinetic ability 5. And a character with Demon has a chance to burn an opponent who strikes him with a melee weapon, but takes 25% penalty to water resistance. So some of these have downsides. There are a lot of talents in here, I won't be going through all of them. Some are quite interesting. So for example, you have Zombie, which lets you heal from poison. So this can be really interesting because there are skills in the game that can leave poles of poison on the ground. So you can use a skill like that and then combine that with the Zombie talent. You can stand in poison and make that heal you. However, regular healing will damage you instead. Not to mention, Zombie can be really good against enemies that use poison. So there are a lot of different combinations. If you want to spend a while building your character, it's definitely worth looking for all of these talents. Definitely the ones that you can actually pick at the start. Some of these are fairly generic, so Pack Mule, for example, only increases the amount of weight that you can carry. It's not super interesting, that's just basically more things that you can carry with you. But some can be quite useful. For example, Far Out Man increases the range of your spells by 2 meters, which is, again, fairly generic, but this can be quite useful with some skills. Or with My Precious, every time you hit or get hit, your gear has 50% chance to not lose durability. This just saves you some money in the long run. We have Stench, decreases everyone's attitude towards you by 25, so this makes you worse in interactions with NPCs. But melee opponents find you less attractive in combat. So you will get targeted less in combat, at the cost of making you worse at social interactions with NPCs. This can be a pretty good one, because you can pick which character is going to interact with NPCs. Alright, so I'm done with all these talents and abilities. Character creation has quite a lot of potential, as you can clearly see. I'm just going to pick one of the default starting templates. Also, I don't really like this white color. This is much better. Fair Rose. Fine. And let's get started. What classes do I want? This doesn't really matter. I'm just playing to show you the basics of the game. Let's pick a witch, for example. And we can pick, let's say, ranger maybe. I do believe a witch has the ability to summon a spider. So the spider can tank for you. Okay, this works. Let's actually go into the game. Yes, I'm done. You can change the names, in case I didn't mention that, so this guy can be me. And let's go into the game. So, you start the game on a beach. There is a short intro video that tells you that you are a source hunter and you were sent to a town of Sicil, or however this is pronounced, to investigate the murder of Councillor Jake. That's pretty much all that you get told. Not a lot of information. So one thing that I want to mention before I really start doing anything. When you first start playing the game, the camera angles are locked, so these are the maximum camera angles that I can use, which can be a little bit annoying at times. So if you go into options, game options, this is something that's really easy to miss, which is why I wanted to mention this. If you go down here, there is an option called unlock rotation. If you check this, you can now rotate the camera 360 degrees. This leads to some awkward areas like this, but this is much more convenient and much better in my opinion. So anyway, how does this game work? This game is not like modern RPGs, in that it does not hold your hand. If I go into my quest journal, these are the 2 quests that you start the game with, you don't actually get told where exactly you're supposed to go. So you don't get a map marker. This is the town that you need to go to. This is the NPC that you need to talk with. This is the cave that you need to go to. This is the exact monster that you need to kill. No, 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 no. None of that. You actually have to figure that out yourself. Based on your journal, and often based on conversations with NPCs. Because not even this journal will include everything. This is just the short version of what's going on. And as I progress this quest, I will get more information in here. But quite often, there is extra information that you get during your conversations with NPCs that you actually kind of have to remember. So you actually have to pay attention to what the NPCs are saying. You can't just skip all the dialogues, go into the quest journal, add the quest to a quest tracker, and then you will get a big arrow that will show you where exactly you need to go. No, 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 no. You can't play this game like that. You actually have to pay attention to what you're doing. So I feel that some people will love this and others will hate it. I have to say, I wasn't sure about this at first, but after playing the game a bit, I'm really enjoying this. If you want to immerse yourself in a game world, this game does a really good job at doing exactly that. And despite the fact that I enjoy playing games at a very fast pace, which many of my viewers can probably attest to, I've been really enjoying this aspect of the game, which I think says a lot. If you like this idea, then I can tell you that you will enjoy this game a lot. Anyway, let's actually go and do something. Now, there are quite a few neat design decisions that I really enjoy about the game. So here's one of them. If you press Alt, you will highlight all the items on the ground? Or is it all items on the ground? This is actually based on your perception. So if you have drastically different perception on your two main characters, or on anyone else that might be in your party, then you will get different results with this. My perception difference is not big and there isn't really anything on the ground here that I can use as a demonstration, but this ability to highlight items on the ground is actually based on your perception, and I quite like that. There are quite a few really neat design decisions like this that I think you will like a lot. Also, the items that are inside these objects, like the wooden crate in this case, notice that this wooden crate did not get highlighted when I press Alt. This only highlights items on the ground. This doesn't highlight objects that you can interact with. So in this case it did not. If I just kind of ignore this chest, I wouldn't find these items, and these are actually random, including in saves. If I reload my save at the start of this beach, I should have an autosave there, and if not, you can use F5 to quick save. But even if I quick save right before loading this, I won't get the same exact items inside. This is actually random. So if you start your own game, you will not find these two items inside. I will take this. So I got a book. You can actually read all of the books that are in the game. This one doesn't have a whole lot. This one unlocks a recipe. I won't really talk about crafting right now. Oh yeah, there is a stealth system in the game, but I actually didn't really want to talk about that just yet. And this is actually kind of funny, because this turns me into a rock, or I disguise myself as a rock. This is actually dependent on the environment that you're in. You might not always disguise yourself as a rock. You might disguise yourself as a barrel, for example. So nothing to see here, guys. Just a walking rock. Totally nothing strange going on here. And line of sight of NPCs actually matters in the game, but there are no NPCs around here. So for now, just take note that there is actually a stealth system in the game, and it works quite well. Let's actually get out of here and move. Now, the game definitely rewards paying attention to your environment, and the game really rewards exploration. You want to take your time, because a lot of things are really easy to miss. So for example, here's one of them. If I keep pressing Alt, this doesn't tell me that this corpse is something that I can actually interact with. And there is a rain scroll over here. This is a spell that I can use in combat. This is a spell that you can learn normally, but with a scroll you can cast it once per scroll in combat. Anyway, this is a body that I can actually interact with, and there's a traveler's journal in here, which will actually add a new quest. So in this case, rejoice, for the statues have granted my wish. Their whimsical nature, however, must not be taken lightly, so before I soar through the sky like an eagle, I shall attempt a mere hop from the cliffs down at the beach. This should be a small feat for a man that can fly. If this experiment is successful, the sun shall be my next target. Well, I think we can reasonably assume that he failed. So this experiment was not successful, but now I have a new quest in here. The talking statues. We learn from the diary of a dead man that he jumped off a cliff, believing that some whimsical statues had granted him the ability to fly. I wouldn't get this quest if I didn't check the corpse. And here's another mechanic of the game that works really well with multiplayer. So this game is actually designed with co-op in mind. And here's how it works. I can interact between my two characters. In this case, I will just talk with myself, but if you are playing with a friend, you can interact with each other. You can actually argue about certain decisions that you make. So if you talk with an NPC and there's a decision that you need to make, these two characters can actually disagree with each other, which will have various effects, and you will actually have to resolve the differences. Maybe I will be able to show you how that works, but not in this dialogue, because this is just a dialogue between my own characters. There's no decision to make here. But this dialogue will actually affect some things. So because of the options that I picked, I get romantic +1. What exactly does that mean? That's this thing right here. So There is a scale that goes from pragmatic to romantic. These are traits. There's more than one, but right now I only had one event that affected this, so there's only one that you can see. But there are several. So if I'm pragmatic, I will actually get a bonus to crafting. If I'm romantic, I will get lucky charm increased. So these things aren't just pure fluff, they actually have effects on your skills, which is something to keep in mind. And I quite like that. This game works amazingly well with co-op. This game was just designed with co-op in mind. Obviously you don't have to play co-op. You can play single player and do all of that yourself. You can turn off these interactions if you want to. That's an option in game. So you can disable dual dialogues if you play single player, or you can keep them. I kept them because this is an interesting part of the game. You can roleplay as two completely different personalities, for example. Right, I'll grab this. Now the crafting system in the game is also quite interesting. I don't think I can actually show you right now, but I should be able to show you soon if I get a few more items. But the way crafting system works is that you basically just combine items together by dragging them over each other, and then you get a new window. I can't really show you because I don't have any items that can be combined. At least I don't think so, but hopefully I'll get something that will work. Anyway, we're about to hit the first combat of the game. Combat in the game is turn-based. This is just a tutorial fight, more or less. And the way combat works is actually really interesting too. There are a few design decisions that I really enjoy. Let's wait for the monsters to actually arrive. We won't be fighting the wizards over here. This guy is actually level 5. And the level difference in the game is quite important. If I were to fight something that's 4 levels above me as a level 1, I would just get murdered terribly. So combat is turn-based. You get action points for your turn. This purchase on top of the screen is combat order. I can move with Marbozir first, and then I will be able to move with Scarlet, and then the Cursed Lieutenant will have his move, and the Cursed Servants, and me again. So on each turn you get certain amount of action points that you can use to move, or you can use them for skills. For example, if I were to use, let's say, Bloodletting, I would use 6 action points, and I would be left with 2. When you hover over a certain option, these icons down here change colors. So one sphere represents 1 action point. When it's green, that means these are the points you have. When it's red, it means these are the points that you would use if you follow through with the action that you're considering. So if I move here, I will use 3 action points, I will be left with 5. Now here's one really interesting design decision. You can actually skip a turn, and you will preserve these points. You will have them available or added to your action point pool on your next turn. I really like that. That's not something you see very often. So for example, I can use Bloodletting on the Cursed Servant. Now this is a skill that causes bleeding, and because these are undead they will not bleed, but they will still take a bit of damage. And now I can skip my turn. I will get extra 2 action points on my next turn. And yes, you can hold control and hover over your target to get additional information. In this case I don't really get a lot of additional information. Anyway, I can summon a spider. That's actually one of the reasons why I picked this class. This will summon a spider that will fight for us. The spider doesn't have any special abilities, but it can attack targets and tank damage for us basically. I will move a little bit closer again and skip the turn. Now the monsters attack. They will attack my spider. And now because I saved the 2 action points on the previous turn, I get 2 extra. These are these darker spheres right here. These are the points preserved from my previous combat round. And I think I'll actually attack these guys in melee now. This will use 4 combat points or 4 action points. So I should be able to attack this guy twice. Or I can kill him, that also works. I don't think I'm close enough to use Razor's Edge. No, I'm not. Actually, I can attack this guy, because that uses 3 points. I missed, unfortunately. Alright, that's fine. I still preserved 1 action point, so that might be useful on the next turn. Now, I do have a buff, which will increase my damage by 50% or damage of my target. I could use this on Marbozir to give him extra damage, or I can just use a ranged attack with my staff. Like this. And because... Actually no, I can't do this twice, I can move a little bit closer. And now I can attack this guy with my spider. And now, because I'm flanking this guy, he gets -10 to defense, which is indicated by this icon above him. There are quite a few mechanics like this. And there are quite a few interesting interactions between skills and status effects that are not immediately obvious, and the game doesn't tell you openly about some of the interactions between skills. You actually have to discover them yourself. There are some really powerful combos in the game. So that guy is dead. I don't think they dropped any loot, but my journal was updated. As you can see, we were attacked by a group of Tomb Raiders. They mentioned something about a stone. They used necromancy against us, a further indication that indeed Source is at play in Sicil. So, if you go here, we will arrive at the first town. By the way, the first town is massive. You can literally spend several hours just talking with NPCs. This game has a lot of dialogue. You don't have to talk with NPCs, but if you enjoy doing that and immersing yourself in the world, you can literally spend several hours at the first town before you even go outside to fight something. But this is a tutorial dungeon. If I go in here, the game will explain some other mechanics that are important to know about. But even if you are familiar with all these game mechanics, there are a few that I didn't really discuss yet. There's some loot to be had in here, so it's worth coming here, even if you know all the basics. We can destroy this chest and get some extra money in this case, or enfeebling torch scroll. Yeah, this is actually random. The first time I came here, I got some gold from this chest and I did not get this scroll. Not all loot is random, so for example the scroll of rain is always there in the starting area, right next to the corpse that I got the journal from. Anyway, another thing that I didn't mention yet is that you can interact with a lot of objects, like this broken vase. I can pick this up and I can throw it around. This is actually affected by strength. The higher the strength, the heavier objects I can throw around and the further I can throw them. Anyhow, before I explore this tutorial dungeon any further, I'm actually going to finish this video and continue in the next one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.